Stay put. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, go. Yes.
What would you consider a strong or weak GPA?
Okay, now there's no way I can avoid that question when we're talking about Cal Poly. So let me can I come back to that when I show you when we get to my readings slide? I'll kind of talk about GPA. Yeah.
I had a question about the criteria list that you showed us on Cal Poly's website.
Yeah.
Can we assume that that's always up to date, or are there times where you have to try and contact a counselor?
Such a good question. So 10 years ago, I would have said, no, we cannot assume that it's always up to date. Because they would change it constantly. We negotiated with them that they would give us a 2-year lead in every time they're going to make a change to it, and now that's why they say, when you saw me go on, I had to pick a term, fall 2014, 2015. They've now committed that that's locked in during that admissions term. Yeah. So, but they only commit 2 years out. So if it's going to be longer, then you have to stay kind of available. Yeah, good question. Okay. Yes.
When you get to that GPA, will you also explain if they look at your total GPA or if they do only courses that?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a really good question as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. So speaking of good grades, making sure that you're doing all you can. You're using tutoring, you're using office hours, you're having good study habits, you're using group study sessions, you're incorporating good habits to make sure that you are keeping your GPA as high as possible. And then also this is something I have to do constantly with my students, but asking yourself, what if I never get into Cal Poly? What is my backup plan? What if Cal Poly is my #1, where else would I be looking? Now that might not necessarily be the case for all of you guys because of than it would be for my students because of geographic location, but making sure that you're not putting your eggs all in the Cal Poly basket. Making sure you're asking yourself, what if it never happens, where else could I be going? What would I be doing? So that you're applying broadly. And Cal Poly will tell you, through they're the first to say, apply broadly. Don't just apply to Cal Poly syllabus. Also making sure you get connected. Cal Poly does have a VIP page that you can go onto their website and you can fill out a VIP page and you'll get regular updates on things. Making sure you're staying connected with your counselors here and you're doing regular planning, whether that's in your counseling department or your transfer center. Make sure that you know assist and the transfer selection criteria, and prioritizing your course selection. Major related should be #1. And then making sure that you're completing Area A of the CSU GE pattern. That's your speech, that's your English composition, and I'm going to say your critical thinking. Now, most people will say, but for Cal Poly, for engineering, you don't need critical thinking. It wasn't on that list. Did you guys not? It wasn't on the selection criteria. Even with my students, which we know that we're going to have a high percentage doing in Cal Poly, I encourage them to take the critical thinking. And that's because, again, they cannot put their eggs all in the Cal Poly basket. They should be making sure that they're covered no matter where they want to go. And all of the CSUs, not all of them waive the critical thinking for admissions process. As well as if you're looking at a UC, you need to have that critical thinking class.
What about second level comp?
Okay, so that would be a decision-making call. The second level comp, does that work for your critical thinking on the CSU GCAP?
We have one class that combines critical thinking and composition.
Okay, yeah, so that would be okay, as long as it works in your area A3.
So if we have someone that decides to do just the critical piece, thinking piece, will they have to do their second level comp once they get to Cal Poly?
No.
They won't.
They will have to do their technical writing though. Will they have to do their second level, when they do the critical thinking piece? Yeah, and that critical thinking piece works for A3? Yeah, they'll just have to do their technical writing. There. You guys don't have a technical writing class there? Okay, you just have to do their technical writing. Yeah.
I just want to clarify the VIP page, that does not connect the student with a counselor at Cal Poly. It's just information.
It doesn't connect them with an academic advisor. It connects them with the admissions office, which those are two different components. Admissions operates very different than the academic advising component. which the academic advising is once you've been admitted. Right. So VIP only connects them with the admissions staff. So if they're trying to make decisions about should I take this class or that class, and VIP or the admissions is only going to be able to answer that from an admissions strategy versus from a graduations perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but are there humans there that you can talk to?
Yeah, there are humans.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there something, does that make sense what I said to you guys? You got it? Yeah,
we're
okay.
just this is kind of new.
Okay, good. Okay. And then also I encourage you guys to participate in internships and work experience related to your field. It's not super heavily weighted, but again, it helps on the Cal Poly application, and I'll tell you kind of where. Okay. So, when it comes time to apply, these are some tips. So, most of you sitting in the room who are ready to apply and you're looking at that fall 2015 transfer, keeping these things in mind. So the Cal Poly application is unique. Use the guide. The guide is in your packet. Okay, that's the first thing attached. Kate's been working hard on this all week. This is something that Questa and I developed years and years ago. Our students do not sit down and fill out the application without this piece of document in front of them. We have no copyright on it. We share it readily, no problem. Kate has started it from a STEM perspective. This is something you guys could adopt from a whole campus perspective if you wanted to. So using the guide. I would recommend that once you sit down and you make a really good concerted effort on filling out the Cal Poly application, that you don't submit it right away. That you have somebody, a second pair of eyes, look at it, like in your transfer center, or someone who maybe is sitting in this room today who could, who understands the Cal Poly application. Have somebody else look at it as a second pair of eyes before you submit it, okay? Wait to submit your application until you confirm your spring schedule. Is your spring schedule out? Is it published? And when do you start registration?
November 24th.
November 24th. Okay, so that's pushing it a little bit. Yeah, in December. Okay, so we obviously don't want to wait till December because the deadline being November the 30th. But as long as you can confirm that there's no class conflicts in what you're planning to take, that things that, you know, it's pretty good set that yes, what you thought you were going to take, you will be able to take. Just because after you submit, making those changes is just another added layer of complexity that would add to your workload. And then printing off your confirmation after you submit, making sure you have proof that you did submit, and then understanding that getting any D's or F grades the year prior to transfer will jeopardize your admissions to Cal Poly. Your admissions to Cal Poly is conditional, and it's conditional based on that your fall and your spring grades and what you took are exactly represent what you put on the application. And if you get D's or F's, unlike some of the other CSUs, Cal Poly will rescind the admissions notification, even if it's a D or an F in a GE class.
So are we saying what we expect to get in the classes that we're signing up
No,
for?
you're not, and I'll show you that. You're going to show that your work is in progress or planned, and that's what will be represented in your GPA.
So you're planning on taking and passing these classes?
Correct. You're taking and planning to pass them with a C or better. Right. But getting D's or F's, once they see your final transcript, they won't clear your conditional until it comes in when you said what you were going to complete, and you did it with C's or better.
So if a student got a D or an F in prior and is planning to repeat it in the spring, they will take that into consideration.
Yeah, I'll show you how to represent that on the application, and please make sure you remind me.
Read something on the website that they don't, certain classes, like they say C or better, but a C might not be accepted. And is that part of the conditional too? Like your final year, if you get a C in something that they're not accepting C's.
And they said that on Cal Poly's website, or you read it somewhere?
On the application, actually, when they're like putting with the grade of C or better, be warned that C is not always accepted.
As, are you sure it wasn't a C minus?
Is that?
Yeah, it probably said a C minus.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And do you guys have minus plus grading? Good, that doesn't complicate it. Okay, and then always, when you do get your admissions notification that you've been conditionally admitted, accept the offer right away. And unlike some of the other CSUs and UCs, there's no penalty for saying I'm coming and I don't show up. And the reason that I say that is because you don't have to pay, you don't have to give a deposit, and if you happen to forget to accept their offer and the deadline comes and goes, and you remember the day after the deadline, your space is gone. So make sure that as soon as you get the conditional admission, just hit accept. And if you don't show up, even if you don't show up and you reapply for next year, that doesn't affect you in any way. I've had students miss it by one day and they are out, even though they got it. Okay, so we're going to go into the we're going to go into the CSU application in just a minute. But how many of you have been on CSU Mentor before? You filled out an application, you kind of know the flow of it? Okay, so there are set pages that are alike for pretty much all of the CSUs. But Cal Poly adds 3 extra pages to the application that are unique to it. They are the most important pages of the whole application. The other application matters, but it's the last 3 pages, that data that you are manually entering is loaded into a computer. And that computer makes the selection.
Do you know, does Cal Poly Pomona have the same? No.
No, it's
completely
only
unique to
Cal Poly,
SLO.
yeah,
Okay.
it's only unique to SLO. Exactly. So, did everybody hear that there is no person making the decision? Which is very different from the rest of the whole world. Maybe not world, but. And the data that you're entering into those last 3 pages is critical. And if you make a mistake, and it can be as simple as loading your engineering calculus into the technical calculus line, it can make you automatically not get in. And I've had that happen before. So that is why we are so delicate with this application. So we treat it very delicately. Because even though you've done everything right on paper, if you don't represent it exactly how it matches up with what they're looking for, then there's no recourse for. I've had students load all of their calculus-based physics into the trig-based physics, didn't have it reviewed, sent it off, got denied, took everything right, got high GPA, tried to appeal, they said tough. So just making sure that the last 2 pages you're paying really close attention and you're using your tools. Like I said, you're evaluated in 4 areas and they're all weighted differently. And those 4 areas again are course specific, GPA, GE, and extracurricular activities. We know with STEM majors that the extracurricular activities is only weighted like 5% or so. It's pretty low. We also know that GE is weighted pretty low, but we know GPA and course specific is rated the highest and the most weight.
Also, isn't it in area that applicants from within the county get higher rated?
I'll get to that. Yep, I'll get to that for sure.
I have a question. For someone who already applied, is it possible to change application?
That's a good question. Yes, it is. And what I would do, what I would offer my advice to you is that you print out what you can be able to access what you printed out. Print out what you did. Have it checked. If there are mistakes, contact Cal Poly immediately and just let them know what happened. Yeah.
Why is extracurricular stuff weighted so low?
The department has just made that call. That's just the department making that priority. Basically, they have 100% to work with, and they're prioritizing accordingly. I don't know, because I don't work for Cal Poly, so I don't know those conversations. We just know that to be the case.
Is there any kind of quota for a community college, like, okay, we'll accept, you know, we'll lower the threshold for this community college because we didn't get that many applicants from there. So everyone from Cabrillo is being evaluated exactly like every other community college student that's
Yes.
trying to apply.
Yes and no, and I'll show you the, yes and no. Yes, and I'll show you the no.
Okay.
Yes, they are. But they're competing only amongst other community college students in their major. Right. So, the other thing I was going to say is you asked me about GPA. So we know that in these 4 areas, the last 3 pages, and I'll show you, is how they're going to evaluate these areas. Okay? The last 3 pages of the application. So the GPA that they're looking at isn't the self-reported GPA. It is the GPA that's reported in these last 3 pages, or that they calculate from the last 3 pages, or forgive me, that the computer calculates from the last 3 pages. Okay? All right. Hopefully that'll come together for you when I show you the last 3 pages still. You compete by major, minimum GPA versus selection. Who knows what the minimum GPA is to be considered at Cal Poly?
2.0.
Yeah, 2.0, minimum GPA. So in line with all the other CSUs. What GPA you're selected at will depend on your competition at the time. And it will depend on who you're competing against, how many spaces are available during that specific term. I like to see my students at least a 3.0 or higher. But I'll never discourage somebody lower than that from not applying. I'll just make sure they apply broadly and have backup plans in place.
Do you have a list of the threshold, GPA threshold?
We have a list. We don't have, what we have a list is, I don't have it with me, but I can get it to you, no problem. We have a list by major of last year, the average GPAs that were selected by major. We also have how many applicants and how many enrolled. What they don't tell us and won't reveal is how many were accepted from the, how many applied.
Is that somewhere accessible online? We
Nope,
can find?
we've asked
I
for
mean,
it.
for the school data?
Oh, that data? I don't know if it's online. I got it from Melissa the other day. But I have it on email. I can send it out. I can probably even bring it up. Yeah. Okay. So the application is your first Cal Poly exam. Treat it like that. And this is not my words. That's their words. That's what they've told us. And you get to get help on it. It's a take-home exam. And you get to have a lot of people look at it and make sure it's right. So make sure you put the time and effort into it if you're really treating it that way.